Move the volume on the sound.
This is Worldwide Flavor Network. Coast to coast and worldwide.
The views, information, or opinions expressed on the broadcast of Worldwide Flavor Network are solely those of the individuals involved and does not represent those of Worldwide Flavor Network and Live365.com. Worldwide Flavor Network is not responsible and does not verify the accuracy of the information contained on any live or recorded broadcast available for listening on the site. Tune in daily to WWFN Online Radio, your information, news, and entertainment network. This is your girl, Elle. Join us at Elle's Place every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m., where we get down to the nitty-gritty because it is hump day and we are here for it. Don't forget to visit worldwideflavornetwork.com. This show is being sponsored by Worldwide Flavor Network. If you are looking to have your own radio show, come and join us here on WWFN Online Radio. Contact us via our website, www.worldwideflavornetwork.com.
Good evening, and welcome to Elle's Place. I am Elle, and I just want to say a very special thank you for you being here tonight with me. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you are here. And so I just say a very special thank you. And also, I just want to say a special thank you to my sponsors. If you, anyone else would like to become a sponsor, please feel free to do so. I will put my email in the comment link at the bottom, and so once you click that, you can go in and become a sponsor for this show, and that way I can continue to bring you quality content. All right, so tonight's show is about overcoming insecurity and jealousy. And so from my experience, I have learned that people feel more comfortable with admitting that they have issues with insecurity, but not so much with jealousy. And so those two things actually goes hand in hand. And so when I think of insecurities and jealousy, I look at them as if they're twins, but one has a mole. Okay, so one is a little bit different because insecurities are feelings or negative emotions that are internalized, but jealousy is a negative emotion that you externalize, and that means like you put it out on others. And so also, if you want to comment, I can see your comments here on the screen. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to do so. And also, if you would like to call in, the number is 443-304-7150. So once again, the number is 443-304-7150. And so your questions and comments are appreciated. So tonight we're going to go ahead and jump into the topic at hand. And so we're going to begin with, we're going to begin with insecurity. Okay, so I actually have the definition for that from dictionary.com. And so that is defined as subject to fears, doubts, etc. Not self-confident or assured. An insecure person, not confident or certain, uneasy, anxious. And then it gives a sentence. It says he was insecure about the examination, not secure, exposed or liable to risk, loss, or danger, and insecure stock portfolio, etc. So basically, insecurities are when you do not feel confident in yourself, and whatever may be causing that, you do not have that safety of who you are. And so when we look at insecurities, we really have to figure out how did that begin. So usually when you see an insecurity show up, one place is usually within the relationship dynamic. And so you'll have a couple and then one or both persons are insecure. Now, that doesn't usually start there with those two individuals. It is something that you have to backtrack almost to pinpoint exactly where it began. And so once again, if you would like to comment or have any questions, feel free to do so. I do read your comments and I will answer your questions once you submit them, and I can see them here on the screen. And also feel free to call in at 443-304-7150. And so back to insecurities. So insecurity is internalized with self-emotions that have not been fully gratified. So it's usually when you come against a situation that is uncomfortable to you, or you feel as if you're not adequate enough to complete an assignment, or if you're within a relationship, you'll see those insecurities rise up because, hey CJ, how are you? But you'll begin to see those insecurities rise up if you have dealt with infidelities or things like that in the past. So usually it has nothing to do with the person that is there in the present. It's always something stemming from your past. And so I know with insecurities, sometimes it comes from being a child when you have an adult or a parent that gives you destructive criticism. Instead of building you up, they say things to you that will tear away at your core self-esteem, and then you begin to develop a personality on top of that. And so it causes you, once you become an adult, to feel those insignificant things pop up in your life, and then you begin to feel as if you're not good enough, or usually it comes up as if you're not good enough, probably for the individual that you're with or the task that you have at hand. You feel like you can't complete it because you don't have everything that you need to complete that particular thing. So what we need to do in reference to dealing with insecurities, good evening, Tisha. But what we need to do in reference to insecurities is to first look back to see where it began. And so when you do that, you go backwards to any negative conversations that you had, anything that would have torn down your self-esteem, the way you see yourself, your self-awareness. You'd be surprised at with those emotional impacts at a young age, or even in your older age, but just in having negative relationships, what that could do to you in the future. And so sometimes you think you have gotten over a particular negative thing until you have something that comes and trigger you, and then you begin to experience these insecurities. And so the first thing is to go and look backwards to figure out, where did this thing initiate? Where did it start? And sometimes it could be from not just your parental or familiar surroundings, even though that could very well be the situation, having those people speaking negative things into you and over you, but it could also be from your romantic relationships, where you may have had to deal with someone who didn't handle you well in the beginning of that relationship, and then you begin to develop and build, unfortunately, unhealthy patterns on top of that. So that is insecurity, roughly. But when you think about jealousy, like I said, is like the twin sister of insecurity. They're actually connected hand by hand, but it's something that you put off on other people. So with society and the way that we are nowadays, we tend to not really look inside of ourselves when we have issues or when we feel negative feelings. We often put them off on people outside of ourselves. So a lot of people will not admit to having feelings of jealousy, but it is real. And all of us at some point may have encountered that feeling. Some people may have it now, and they don't necessarily recognize it as jealousy because maybe they're not acting out on it. But the truth is that jealousy, it really starts within you, and then you kind of put that off on to other people. So some signs that you may actually be dealing with jealousy is, and this one is a weird one, is that you actually kind of emulate, or you begin to copy the person that you're actually jealous of. And so you begin to try to do things like them because you want the same attention or whatever it is that they're getting from being themselves. You want that. So you begin to try to pretend and become like that person. And another sign of jealousy is bitterness or frustration. It usually comes across as another emotion instead of it actually looking like jealousy. But one thing I can say about both of these, insecurities and jealousy, is that even though you may not acknowledge that they exist, people outside of you can usually see it. So it's not something that is hidden, especially when you're within a relationship. It can actually cause an issue and a rift between you and the person that you are with. And so another sign that you may be dealing with jealousy is if you feel threatened by other people because of their success or because they move forward or anything like that. If you feel that this other person having something of value, it causes a threat to you, then you may be dealing with a form of jealousy. And one thing I want to say about insecurities and jealousy is that they both are very real emotions. They generate real feelings. And if you've ever been insecure or jealous, you feel that. You feel it in the very core of your being. It doesn't feel good, but it is a real feeling and it's a real emotion. So we're not going to write it off and say that those things are not real. They are absolutely real. However, the way that you got to that understanding and got to that feeling of jealousy and insecurity are not real. And by that, I mean that you have perceived something that is untrue. So usually when a person is dealing with insecurity, it's because they perceived some type of shortcoming within themselves, or they perceive some sense of failure within themselves. And it's not true. It's absolutely not true. It's just because when you feel insecure, you tend to compare yourself to others, or you tend to look at what everybody else is doing, and then you begin to measure yourself up to what other people are doing. And so that creates a feeling of insecurity within yourself. But those are all perceptions, and it's not true and it's not accurate. Even though the emotion and the feeling is accurate, the thought process that it took for you to get there is not accurate. And so even with jealousy, because you don't actually look at yourself when you begin to feel those negative emotions, you put it off on someone else. And now we have a thing where I think it was like a meme that was going around. It was saying, like, if someone bothers you or disrupts your spirit, or if you feel negative towards someone else, it's probably their demons that is triggering you. But it's not true. A lot of times it's because you haven't dealt with things that are within yourself, and so you begin to put this negative emotion off on someone else, that it must be something wrong with them. And I'll give you an example of a time when I had to deal with jealousy, and it was after I had children and I gained weight, and then I began to try to get back on track with getting back in shape. And I remember being out there and like running, and then running past someone who had a 6-pack, right? And they had like belly shirts on or whatever. And then I began to feel those negative emotions rise up within me. But the truth of the matter is that they were not the problem. It's not a problem that they have a 6-pack. It's not a problem that they even have a belly shirt on. That was my own self-worth being challenged at that moment. And so I'm going to tell you how to kind of deal with coming out of those jealous feelings and coming out of those negative emotions. And both of them, even with insecurities and jealousy, is really looking at yourself. And so once again, with the insecurities, in trying to begin a healthier pattern is recognizing when those things show up. And so whenever you begin to feel less than, or you're feeling insignificant because you're looking at other people, sometimes you have to just shut it down. You have to shut everything down. And I know with social media today, it's really hard to do that because you get to see everyone's life up front. And a way that I used to cope with, and not saying that it was healthy, but a way that I used to cope with it is because I would say, oh, look at these people in their lives, that's up front. And at first I would feel bad, like, oh man, look, they look like they're doing this. They look like they're being successful and all of that. But then I would start to do a thing where I would try to rationalize and say, well, social media, they put up what they want you to see. They put up a front and you only see the good parts, which was okay for the moment, but it does not actually heal that wound of insecurity. And it definitely does not deal with jealousy. But what I had to begin to do was pull myself back from that, and then trying to almost look and like hope that something bad was going on behind the scenes, because jealousy will do that. It'll have you hoping that something is not right, and that what they have going on the exterior is, that is not real. And that's an unfortunate effect of jealousy. But what I had to do was pull myself back and begin to realize when those negative emotions was rising up. And so that's one tip to trying to overcome jealousy and insecurity, is recognizing when those negative emotions come to the surface. What is happening at that time when you begin to experience those negative emotions? Is it because you're seeing someone, maybe they just got married and you're single, and so you begin to feel a little insecure, you begin to become self-challenged, your emotional wherewithal becomes challenged in that. And you have to recognize that, okay, when this particular thing happens, this is triggering me to begin to feel some way that I don't necessarily like to feel. And so with that, you have to begin to take those thoughts, those negative thoughts, and begin to tuck them away. What I would say is take them and then pull them down. You pull down the negative thoughts, and then you begin to create new thoughts in place of those negative thoughts that you're feeling at that moment. And so when you see someone else, and once again, we're going to try to differentiate between insecurity and jealousy, even though they're very similar. And like I said, they go hand in hand. When you feel insecure, that's something that you internalize. It can be detrimental and it can be dangerous to you. However, when you begin to deal with jealousy in other people, it becomes detrimental and dangerous to the other person that you feel jealous towards. And so a more aggressive route of jealousy, or that jealous people take, is sometimes they will go and try to sabotage. They'll try to sabotage the other person that they feel like is doing well. If this emotion is not dealt with, or acknowledged, and then really begin the healing process, it can become very dangerous. Some people have actually killed and murdered other people behind this emotion of jealousy, and it's all because they externalize those negative feelings onto someone else and did not really deal with what those inadequacies and things that they had within themselves. So they begin to put that out onto someone else. And once again, if you would like to call in or you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. I can see them, and call in at 443-304-7150. Yes. And so when you are dealing with jealousy, like I said, it's very dangerous. It's a dangerous emotion. It will make you hate someone that you don't even know. It'll make you hate someone that you have no idea about them, where they're going, what they've gotten, how they got to where they are. You'll just hate that person. And then once again, it has nothing to do with the individuals that you're putting this negative emotion onto. It's because you have not decided to do a self-awareness. And so both insecurity and jealousy is rooted in unfortunately low self-esteem. But that's not even your fault that you have low self-esteem. More than likely, somewhere along the lines of your life, and if you look at life like a timeline, it's like someone put little hurdles up along the way, along your life. And so you had to kind of jump those hurdles to keep going. So if I could identify with those hurdles might be heartbreak. It might be emotional abuse. It may be physical abuse. It may be rejection, because rejection is another big thing that causes insecurities, because it makes you feel like you're not good enough and perhaps no one wants you. But, like I said before, these are not legitimate and true facts or statements about you as a person. And so you have to begin to deal with your imagination and the way that you think about yourself, but not only yourself, but also how you think about and perceive other people who are around you. If you refuse to heal properly from insecurities and jealousy, it will definitely cause an issue with you and your other relationships that you want to build. I know for sure that jealousy will become a stumbling block for you. So, like I said, those hurdles that come along life, yes, someone may have, said something negative to you that made you feel bad about you, or someone may have done something to you that made you see yourself in a negative light. But once you begin to take on jealousy, that's a hurdle that you put up for yourself, because it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time to actually sit and wallow inside of jealousy. And so what jealousy does is that it's a time stealer. It's an emotional time stealer, and it's an energy stealer. So with that, you're not able to move forward in the things that you really desire to do. And that's because you have neglected to properly deal with that jealousy. So jealousy, it doesn't necessarily hurt the other person, even though you have those negative feelings and negative emotions towards them. It doesn't hurt them. It's really just hurting you. And so one of the best things that you could do is to stop and realize, when are you feeling these negative emotions of jealousy? And jealousy can also come across as different other emotions. Like I said, like you will see some manipulation that might be taking place there. Definitely some control issues, because people who suffer with insecurities, they often do not feel secure or safe within themselves. So they try to control and manipulate everything that is around them. And they try to get their security by controlling everyone who's in their personal space. And so sometimes you'll see that insecurity come across as aggression and control. And you'll also see jealousy come across as extreme criticism. So when you see people who constantly are looking for the negative, like I said before, if you see someone who is constantly looking for negative things in other people, looking for things that use to tear them down, that's usually a sign that there is some jealousy there that has not been dealt with. And the unfortunate truth is, people walk with jealousy and insecurity in their hearts for a long time, because it's not something that you actually see externally as yourself. You don't always see it externally. You think you are justified in having these feelings and these emotions, which is okay if you want to walk around miserable for the rest of your life. But I'm sure that you don't, but other people, like I said, other people can see those negative emotions coming forth out of you, and the things that you say and the things that you do. So once again, some of the signs of being jealous is extreme criticism of other people, trying to emulate or copy someone else and their response that they get. And a lot of people become jealous because they feel that there's something of value that someone else has attained that they have not yet attained for themselves. But the truth is, when you look at yourself and you look at your life, that satisfaction and that happiness that you're looking for is really inside of you. You make the choice when you are going to decide to live a happy, full, healthy life. That doesn't have anything to do with anyone else that is outside of you. People can add on, but they can't actually create that happiness for you. Having things such as houses and cars and all that stuff can add on because you are making achievements, but it doesn't actually create that sense of happiness. That starts with inside you. But if you have foundational flaws in the way that you see you, then that is going to cause an issue. And if you use those manipulative tactics, or you use any critical tactics to try to tear down someone else to get to where you're going, when you get there, you're still not going to be happy. And you're going to realize that the material things that you sought after, or the person, or whatever that situation is, when you begin to actually walk in whatever that thing was that you was jealous about and you were coveting, because really that's what it is. When you covet and you actually get it, you still do not have that sense of happiness, because that happiness really starts on the inside of you. And you decide when you're going to walk in that happiness and that healthiness and in that wholeness. So, like I said, once again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comment box. I am looking and I am reading them. And if you have any questions, feel free to also call in at 443-304-7150. Okay, so if you could just really sit back and think about the times when you felt insecure, or when you felt jealous of someone else, you can usually pinpoint it to a particular area. And so that is the first step in identifying and trying to pull down those negative thoughts, is actually capturing them when they come into your mind. So the moment when you start, like beating up yourself, because I've experienced and walked in it being insecure, and really it's a terrible, terrible negative and emotion feeling that you just don't want to have, and you really just don't want anyone else to have it, especially people you love. But when you are walking in insecurity, that's also a hindrance to you moving forward, and is usually attached to fear. And that fear comes from failing, the fear of failing. It comes from the fear of moving forward. And sometimes another thing that I had to overcome was the fear of excellence and the fear of success. And that was also tied to being insecure, which you wouldn't think that is something, but it really is. When you are insecure and you feel less than, like actually becoming successful scares you, because you're afraid that when you get there, like you won't be able to sustain it. And that's because you feel like you lack something within yourself. And like I said, that part is not true. And honestly, it really takes some self-exploration. It takes self-exploration to really begin to heal and overcome insecurities and jealousy. And by that, I mean, you have to find out who you are. You have to find out who you are at the core of who you are. If you live your life in the shadow of other people and trying to be who they are, then you will always come up short. And even if you get to the point of where they are, because you desire to be there, because they're there, they are there, you won't get any satisfaction from being there, because that's not necessarily what you were created to do. And so you have to really begin to explore you. Figure out who you are. Figure out what it is that you want. And then also figure out those places where you feel insecure and begin to strengthen them. I know that I used to really deal with insecurities in relationships, because I had a past of dealing with guys who were what you would call habitual cheaters, right? And so in dealing with them, I had to realize that, I was not necessarily the problem. I was not the problem. It was them that had a problem that they were dealing with that was causing them to be unfaithful. But not realizing that negative feeling was still attached to me, I would try to move forward in another relationship. And then lo and behold, there's insecurity is showed up again. And it's there because I didn't properly heal and deal with it when it was coming up in the past relationship with the infidelities and all of that. And so when you do not heal from insecurities, it causes you not to trust other people properly. And this can be with any relationship, not just romantic relationships, but you begin to see a rift in those relationships where there should be trust, but now that trust cannot be established because you have insecurities. And a lot of times, like I said, you may not recognize it as an insecurity or a fear. You may not see it that way, but your partner that you are with is going to feel every ounce of that. And so it's only fair that you do the work on you first and, deal with those insecurities in the healing, and recognizing too that that was an individual that you were dealing with. That was a person in a particular place at a particular time. That is not necessarily the person that you are with now. And so not only are you now looking and acknowledging when you feel these insecurities come up, you're taking those thoughts and you're pulling them down, right? But now you're also removing yourself and the current person that you're dealing with from those negative emotions. And that is something that you have to intentionally do. So when you begin to feel those emotions come up, you acknowledge that they're there, you begin to pull them down, and then you begin to remove yourself and the other person that you're dealing with. You remove both of you from those negative emotions, and you remind yourself that that was a particular place and a particular time. That is not where you are now, and that is not who you are with. And I know in the past I've had to tell, some guys that I dated, because men is not just women. Men are also insecure sometimes. They struggle in that area, even though they don't admit it. It comes across as jealousy or overpowering, over controlling, those kind of things. But I've had to remind them that I am not who you were with before. I am a different person. And so you really have to, like I said, do the work, do the healing, and then begin to press forward intentionally, trying to recover from those feelings that you had. Yes, amen. And so, like I said, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in, because I would love to answer your questions and dig deep with you. If you want to go there today, we can go there. And I just really want to see some people get help in this area, because it does affect every single thing that you do. If you do not deal with that low self-esteem or lack of self-worth and lack of self-value, it impacts you on every level of your life. Every area of your life is impacted by these negative emotions. And so you'll begin to see things show up that you don't necessarily want to happen, but it's happening because you have not dealt with insecurities and jealousy. And like I say, sometimes it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy when you have not dealt with insecurities and jealousy, because the other people you're dealing with are going to feel those things. Even if you don't acknowledge them as insecurity and jealousy, the person that you're with is going to feel it. And so sometimes that can cause them to pull away, because you are giving off negative traits, which could be coming across as being very critical of them or being very controlling of them. And I've also seen where someone was insecure and they knew that their partner was also insecure. And so they would do things to almost try to make them feel jealous intentionally. Now, that's a different situation, because now that jealousy is coming from someone else and they're playing on your insecurities that you have. But they would try to make the other person feel jealous to make themselves feel wanted or make themselves look more appealing to the person that they were with. That's what I call playing dirty, and you really shouldn't do that to the person that you say you love and that you're with, but it happens. And so when you have situations like that, where you're dealing with someone who is jealous and you have insecurities, you have to stop and be able to have those transparent conversations and letting them know that what you're doing makes me uncomfortable. And in doing that, you make them acknowledge some of those bad habits and bad traits that they have. Now, if you are a person and you are dealing with people who may be jealous of you, because you can also You can feel that. You can feel when someone is jealous of you by the way that they treat you, the things they do, some of the things that they say. If they are like tearing you down and things like that, especially if you are someone who already suffers from low self-esteem or you have insecurities yourself, sometimes you will internalize that person's negative behavior towards you, and you begin to feel that, and it triggers your insecurities. And so when you are dealing with people who are jealous or have jealousy tendencies, sometimes, like I said, you have to have those transparent conversations with them and let them know that, what you're doing makes me uncomfortable. But I know when you deal with insecurities, you tend to not speak up the way that you should because you have a fear. And then there it is again. You have fear that this person might possibly leave you, right? Or you have a fear that you're showing them some sign of weakness because you're speaking up for yourself. But that's not true. If you are a person and you have issues with insecurity, you have not properly healed from that, and you're dealing with someone who is jealous or insecure themselves, that's an interesting relationship dynamic. It's going to definitely be a lot of confusion in the midst of that, and it's going to take a lot of work and transparency with one another to be able to say that, what you did at this particular time made me really uncomfortable. And what you did at this particular time, like, I wasn't happy or pleased with that. And so sometimes you even have to have these conversations with family members. And I know that you want to believe that jealousy does not happen amongst family or friends, but it absolutely does. And so you have to really stand up for yourself, because people who are jealous can also become bullies, because their desire is to kind of, like, they have an anger and a resentment towards you that's unwarranted. Like, sometimes you just exist, and there'll be someone who feels this resentment and anger towards you, and you don't understand why it's there. And it's because their self-worth and self-value, they have a bad perception of themselves. That is not true, because everyone has a sense of value. Everyone has something that they can contribute, and everyone has their own goals and their own purpose in this life. But it's not until you actually find that purpose that you begin to feel fulfilled. So when you have these moments of negative emotions, you can properly deal with them. And I just want to say this too, that, when you go through a healing process, not just with insecurities and jealousy, it's with anything. Any negative emotions that you may feel is not a one-stop shop. It's not a one-time thing, and it's not a one-time process that you go through. As long as you live, as long as you breathe and you walk through this life, you will have to continue your healing process, because you are constantly coming into contact with other people. And like I said, unfortunately, everyone is not self-aware, and everyone is not aware of their own emotional health. And so coming into contact with people who have not properly healed will end up causing you damage somehow. So when you look at your healing process, you shouldn't feel bad for where you are. You are where you're supposed to be within your healing process. And that looks different for everyone. The same, like with insecurities and jealousy, it looks very similar. But with jealousy, there's a little bit more that is attached to that, because those negative feelings are put off onto other people. So you may need to do some deeper self-reflections compared to the person who's just dealing with insecurities, where they just see themselves in a bad light. But when you are dealing with jealousy, you begin to see other people in a bad light, and you begin to almost, like, you can really start to really hope that they don't do well. I'm like, that's a form of witchcraft to be like that negative and hope that someone fails, but it happens because of jealousy. But like I said, it's not a one-stop shop. is a continuous process to walking through healing. You're going to continue to have infractions unless you begin to isolate yourself from everyone all the time at all places. And unfortunately, you can't do that. You have to come into contact with people. You have to go to work. You have to go to school. You have family. These things have to happen. And so you're going to constantly come into contact with things and other people's hurts that they have not healed from. And so this is a process that you have to continuously walk out and continue to do a self-evaluation. And in your continuance of self-evaluation, you can see when things are popping up that shouldn't be there, that are unhealthy, such as insecurities and jealousy. And so once again, when we go back to look at insecurities and how that is defined, and I think I never even gave you the definition of jealousy. I think I just went from insecurity and I just kept rolling. But when you look at the definition of insecurities, it's an inner security that is lacking, and it's when you don't necessarily feel safe with you. And so you have to begin to, like I said, go back in time to see when that began. And even if it didn't show up until later in life, usually it started very early with maybe some of the criticism that you received from someone else who did not properly heal. Or maybe it was, emotional or physical abuse, those things like that tore you down. If you dealt with infidelities or a cheating spouse, those kind of things. And also it could be other things that are within you that you know about you that no one else knows about. And so you can also be exhibiting insecurities because of those things that you feel inside of you that causes you not to be what you think you should be. And so unfortunately, people feel the symptoms of that, but they don't necessarily know how to trace that problem backwards. And so it's your responsibility to do the work. It's your responsibility to go back and to get yourself the help that you need. Okay. And even if that's just maybe linking up with some friends who can give you positive affirmation, someone that can reaffirm you and let you know that you are special, that you are valuable, and because you are. And like I said, every one of us have a part to play in this life. You would not be here. You would not be on this earth if you didn't have some part to play. But in order to walk out a healthy lifestyle mentally, physically, and emotionally, you have to find out where it is that you fit in. And when you begin to find out where you fit, then you won't compare yourself to other people. You won't always check to see what someone else is doing. And then you won't feel less valuable when you see someone else moving ahead. Instead, you'll be able to move ahead in your own lane. I remember it was a time where everybody was talking about staying in your own lane. I don't really hear people say that anymore, but it is true, and I think we closet sometimes the way that we feel about those insecurities and jealousy, but it's good to know and acknowledge that they are there and that they exist. Because once you acknowledge that these negative feelings exist, then you can deal with them. But if you decide that it's always going to be the other person's fault that you're dealing with, you're not going to properly heal, and you're not going to get the closure that you need for yourself to move forward in life. So that's when you look at you and try to pinpoint what it is that's making you feel that way when it is happening. And you see it all the time, especially, like I said, on social media, because everyone's lives are presented before us, and you get to see everything. You get to see all of the good parts. You don't see the bad parts, but you get to see the good parts. And if you feel a desire to kind of one up them, or, like, oh, they did this, so I have to do better than them. It's almost like a competitive spirit comes on you. That is also a sign of jealousy. That's not a good thing. That's not you trying to press forward into your excellence. No, you're trying to press forward into their excellence. And you can't do that. You have to find your own lane. You have to stay in your own lane. You have to find your place of where you can excel. And when you do that, you feel so fulfilled in being you that you begin to turn off those emotions of insecurities and jealousy, you'll have no need for them anymore. So like I said, with your questions and comments, right, yes. So you can definitely submit your questions and comments if you want to. And like I said, when you have feelings of emotional insecurities and you have jealousy, you don't see it, but everyone else sees it. And I know I can attest to seeing, what some would say is like, unfortunately, we receive negativity so well that positivity almost like goes over our heads. And it's just the way that we've been programmed with the things that we see all day, every day, especially on social media. But when you see somebody being petty online, and you see someone writing stuff, yeah. Oh, thank you. When you see someone writing stuff and they're being negative and they're being petty, and sometimes it's like, you'll see people cheering that on and pushing them people forward and being negative. But the truth is, sometimes it is some jealousy that's behind that, that's fueling those negative posts and negative comments that they're making. And like I said, people are not necessarily acknowledging that these feelings exist, because jealousy is such a dirty word. And it really is, because it's a dangerous thing to have. It's a dangerous thing to possess. It takes over you when you feel it. It's just like your emotions, it goes out of the window. You don't rationalize well. You're not thinking well. And you're definitely not thinking well for the person that you feel jealous about, And also, I just want to say that, there are really two forms of jealousy that you'll see. And one is within the romantic dynamics. And the second one is usually with relational dynamics. And by that meaning, like, it doesn't have to be your partner that you're jealous of. You can be jealous of anyone that you see doing anything that you feel is better than what you're doing. And the fact of the matter is when you're dealing with relational jealousy, you are it's definitely something that you have to look at yourself, and you're valuing what someone else is doing higher than what it is that you're doing. And that's not true. Like I said, we all play our parts. We all have a sense of importance in this life. And so when you walk out what it is that you're doing, then you won't have that relational jealousy where you're always looking to compete or try to tear down someone else. Unfortunately, it does happen, but you are responsible for your healing. You are responsible for doing your work, and you are responsible for moving you to a healthier place and a healthier mindset. When you're dealing with the relational jealousy, it is crazy because it could be anyone else that could trigger you. And so it doesn't even have to be someone close to you. It could be someone that you don't know. But just because you feel some way about their success, it can cause you to have those negative emotions rise up. Now, like I said, jealousy is external, is what you put off onto other people, but insecurities is internal, is what you deal with in your self-esteem. But jealousy, when you're looking at dealing with that and healing from it and processing through it, you have to really figure out why is it that you're feeling what you're feeling when you're feeling it. So real quick, we're going to go back over the ways that you can try to overcome jealousy and insecurity. We've talked quite a bit about defining it, what it looks like if you're dealing with it, if someone else is dealing with it. I didn't really touch on the relationship jealousy, but I will do it. I'm going to do it really quick. But with relationship jealousy, it is usually when one partner is dealing with some insecurities and they see themselves in a negative light comparative to their partner, the other partner. This can happen because their person that they're with can legitimately be causing them to feel jealous. In this case, you have to reassess that relationship. And by that, I mean, if that person is intentionally, and we went over this a little bit earlier, if that person is intentionally trying to, cause you to feel jealous, is because they are dealing with insecurities themselves. And so you have to be able to be transparent with that person and say, I am uncomfortable with the way that you're making me feel. And so at that time, that's a great time to address the insecurity that both of you are feeling at that moment. It can be challenging, but it can be done. I would recommend some counseling. Get with a counselor, get with a therapist. Those things still work. Get with someone who can coach you through those situations, but get some help, because it's better for you at the end. It's better for you. You'll end up being a healthier you and a healthier version of yourself. And that way you can present a better and healthier version of yourself to the other people who are in your life. And so once again, the steps for overcoming jealousy and insecurity is to first acknowledge when those feelings are rising up. So acknowledge that those feelings are there, they are real, but the thought process that got you to those feelings and emotion are not real. The thing that you perceived is not true. If you're dealing with insecurities, you perceive yourself to be less than in that particular situation. You perceive yourself not capable of completing whatever that assignment is, or whatever it is that you feel unsure about within yourself is not true. And is usually triggered by something that happened to you in the past, whether it was negative conversation, negative words that were spoken over you, or anything like that. You have to backtrack, get to the root of where that feeling is coming from, because it usually has nothing to do with the situation that you're in currently. So you're going to backtrack. You're going to look back to see what caused the root issue of insecurity to settle in. And then you're going to acknowledge when it happens. So that is also with jealousy. Excuse me. That's also with jealousy. I've been talking a lot because you guys been writing comments, but you haven't been really talking to me. But that's even with jealousy and insecurities. So you're going to backtrack, see the root, acknowledge it when it happens. And then once you acknowledge when it happens, you're going to pull those thoughts down. Excuse me. Promise it's not the Rona. I just got a dry throat, y'all. But you're going to backtrack. You're going to acknowledge when it happened. And then you're also going to begin to take those thoughts and pull them down. So don't forget that, because that's really important. You take those negative thoughts that you're having in that moment when it comes to insecurities and jealousies, and you feel that thing rising, begin to pull it down and then begin to replace those thoughts with positive thoughts. So sometimes you may need to develop a positive affirmation that you can speak to yourself. When you begin to feel that fear rising up, saying that you can't do something or you're not good enough, you begin to speak the opposite to yourself. Now, if you want to speak it out loud, great. That's even more powerful. But you may be in a place where you can't, you may be in a place where you cannot necessarily speak it out loud, but you can speak to yourself internally, right? So you begin to speak to yourself inside, the opposite of what you're feeling. So if you feel like I can't do this, begin to say, I can do this. I can do this. I am good enough. I deserve whatever that thing is. I deserve love. I deserve good things. You have to begin to speak that to yourself. Someone commented and said, do you believe jealousy is a form of fear? Yes. So jealousy is definitely a form of fear, and it comes across as controlling. And usually it's when people have insecurities that they have not healed from. And so when they have those insecurities that they haven't healed from, they put that off onto other people in the form of jealousy. And then it comes across as aggression and control. Because usually people who have insecurities, they like to try to control the things that they can, which sometimes, unfortunately, are other people. So yes, jealousy definitely is a form of fear, and you see that in the form of control. When people feel like they can't control themselves, they will try to control the things that are around them. So let me get back on track with how to overcome. So we said backtrack to your past to figure out when that root set in, the root of insecurity, the root of jealousy, right? Then you're going to acknowledge when it is happening. So whenever it comes up, whatever it is that's triggering you, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that and then work on it if you can. Whatever it is. If you want to lose weight and skinny or thinner people are running around and it's making you feel insecure and jealous, then you can always go and work out. Start somewhere. So you're going to acknowledge it. And then when those thoughts come up that says you're not good enough or you're not worthy of this or you can't do this, begin to do the opposite in speaking to yourself. So you're going to begin to say the opposite, which is I can do this. I can move forward and I can complete whatever it is that I'm trying to do. And also surround yourself with people who can give you positive affirmations, who will also speak life back into you. So you want to surround yourself with positive people who will also do the same, who can see the goodness in you, who can see greatness in you, and have them to speak that life back into you. Okay, so I think that was 1, 2, 3. I don't know how many steps we went over at this time, but if you are just chiming in onto this show, please go back, rewatch it, like it, love it, share it on your timelines, share it on whatever social media platform that you're watching from. I believe this will be beneficial and help someone else. And so with that, today we have discussed jealousy and insecurities. We've discussed how they look and also how they feel when you receive it from someone else. And we've also discussed how to overcome it. So if you have any questions or comments, you can continue to comment in the comment section, or you can shoot me an email at lsplace2020@gmail.com. And also, if you want to become a sponsor for this show, L's Place, then also just shoot me an email if you have any questions or comments, show topics that you want to discuss. And also, if you want to advertise your things, your services, right? Come on over to my email, shoot me an email, and then we can do that for you here. So that's it for my show this evening. I just want to say a very special thank you for those of you who have chimed in. I hope it's been helpful. Please leave your positive feedback. I go back, I read the comments, and I just want to say I appreciate you, and it's been wonderful. So you all have a blessed evening. Bye-bye.